Well, I'm going to work on it. I'm going to eat clean, and then I'm going to go get my blood work done. That's actually backwards. Go ahead and get the blood work done and use that as your basis to nourish your body better, to do the things that you need to do, to exercise, whatever it happens to be, because that's your baseline. That is a number. That is facts. It's not about losing weight and being skinny. It's facts about your health. I'm your host, Kim Hines, and welcome to the Emotional Eats podcast. I'm on a mission to show you that what you consume, not just the food, affects your entire life. Midlife is different. Let's dig into the real reasons why you eat when you're not hungry and why you're not feeling well. My guests and I are going to give you doable solutions and help you let go of perfectionism, food rules, and stress to make changes that will last a lifetime. If you're ready to ditch old school diet culture and nourish your entire life, this is the show for you. Welcome to episode 18 of the Emotional Eats podcast. In this episode, I shared 10 things that I did in my 50s to improve my mental and physical health. And it helped unlock my midlife happiness. Don't have a perfect life, but I definitely feel happier when I'm doing these 10 things. There's so much information that I actually broke this down into 2 podcasts. So I will share the first 5 actions with you in this episode. And I'm excited to share with you things that I did, but also making sure that you know that you are an individual and you get to do things the way you want to do them. So whether it's talking about changing my restrictive behavior over the years, how I nourish my body, some of the things that I cut out of my world in order to feel better and happier, these are things that you can take as just ideas to help change your mental and physical health. So tune in. I hope you enjoy the show and make sure to check the show notes to connect with me and let me know what you think. And also to get your 20% off discount code for Organifi Superfood Supplements. I look forward to hearing what you have to say and what things work for you. And also make sure to give me a 5-star rating and review and subscribe and follow. Welcome to the episode. I'm really excited today to share with you 10 action steps that I took to really improve my mental and physical health in my 50s. And I started this in my 40s. So if you're not to your 50s yet, this is great for you to start looking at all these different aspects of your life and unlocking this happiness for your body. This doesn't mean having a perfect life if you do all these things, but it does mean making you stronger, more resilient, feeling more comfortable in your skin, and helping your mind as well, and helping your mental health. So there are 10 action items, but because there's so much information, I'm breaking it into 2 podcasts. So this is part 1. So let's get started. One of the first things that I realized, and this actually started in my 40s, but I'm feeling much stronger about it, even in my 50s. If you are someone that follows me already, you know that this is really important to me and important for my clients. I stopped dieting, I stopped restricting my food, and I stopped tracking my food. Throughout my lifetime from age 19 until my 40s, which is a very long time, I was very restrictive with my food, and then I would binge. And I also felt like I had to have so much control over my food. And by embracing intuitive eating, I feel like I have way more control. But this is why I am in tune more with my body. Instead of listening to a diet, reading a diet book, going by somebody else's meal plan, and restricting my calories, I am now nourishing my body the way that I feel my body needs. Because when we go on a diet, it's a one size fits all. So imagine if your friend goes on this trendy diet, we won't name names, but they lose 30 pounds and you try to do it and it doesn't happen. Your body is very different and it might not even be the food that you want to eat. The other issue with that diet is we really don't know what the sustainability of it is. How long does that last? Because I dieted and dieted and dieted. And if we are going on diets continuously, then there isn't something that's lasting long term because we keep having to start over. And if we just live our life and eat when we're hungry and nourish our bodies, we don't have to have this restrictive nature. I also have a personality of checking off things on a list, keeping track of things. And that might be another form of control. So you can think about that in your own life. If that's something you do, maybe there is a form of control that you need to have. And that's why you do that with your food. And I found that I always wanted to track everything. But in the end, I realized that tracking really held me back because it was hard to enjoy social events. I would be at work and people would say, well, Kim won't eat the birthday cake. Kim won't have pizza with us, whatever the situation would be. But then if I had restricted too much, I would go home and no one would know that I would be binging at home on whatever food was there. I would go out and get chocolate. So I stopped restricting. So what does this mean in my 50s? What this means is I am way more connected to my hunger cues. I'm way more connected to feeling satisfied with my food. I also can find a really nice balance between food that nourishes my body, vitamins and minerals and all the nutrients that I need, but also enjoying life and having that dessert with my husband on date night without having so much shame and guilt. Because when we get to our 50s, we should be feeling wisdom. We should be feeling a little bit more settled. We should be feeling a little bit less stress around all those issues. Yet, some of us are so conditioned, whether it's from our past, whether it's from society, we are so conditioned and we just keep doing the same thing over and over again. So when I honored my body's cues, and I'm doing that now, I have been nourishing my body a little bit differently. So the first one is I stopped the restriction. I had to change my mindset around food, and I had to really start listening to my body. So number two is how do I nourish my body now? Because in the past, I did follow whatever I saw. And when I first started dieting, there was no social media. And now on social media, we see all these different ways that people will say, as I'll put this in air quotes for the listeners, experts will tell you exactly how you should eat and how you should nourish your body. And I found when I really tried different things, and I do this with my clients, we experiment because you're kind of like a science project, N equals 1. You get to experiment on yourself. And if it doesn't work, you get to move on. And we don't create a plan that includes food that you absolutely don't like. And that's what a diet might be. There might be food in there. Well, I'll do it because maybe I'll lose weight, but then it's not sustainable. So nourishing the body. And I've eaten a lot of different ways throughout the years. And I'm telling you this as someone who wants you to think about what works for you. This doesn't mean when I tell this to you that you have to do what I'm saying, but I'll tell you the reasons why it's working for me and many of my clients. I noticed as I was getting older that I wanted in my heart to be plant-based for many different reasons. And those of you who are plant-based, vegetarian, or vegan, you know some of the reasons why you want to do that. And for me, it was a health reason, but I obviously also wanted to help animals in our planet. What I found as I got older in my later 40s, early 50s, that adding back protein, animal protein, in the form of eggs, meat, fish, poultry, really added a level of vitality and energy to my body. My hair and my nails and my skin improved. This again is what my clients and what I am doing, and you have to experiment with yourself. But there's so much good information out there on the effect of protein as we get older. on our bodies. So please look that up and do your own research. When I talked about the plants and eating a lot of fiber, that is still very important to me. We know that the fiber is so important. We know the minerals, the vitamins, and the nutrients that we're getting from plants is amazing. But also, that fiber really helps move things through your system. We want to make sure that some of the vegetables that we're eating are helping us, because when you're on medications and you're on, some women are on hormone replacement therapy, we want to make sure that we have those vegetables and really clearing those pathways and keeping everything clean. And that's very helpful. But also, as a nutritionist and health coach, I'm going to get TMI, but it helps you go to the bathroom every day. We really need to have that fiber in there and the water. And I also, with the protein and the fiber, include a carb. And carb is not a 4-letter word. It's okay. And we look at carbs differently. Some people include their vegetables as their carbs. I do not, because that is fiber. So I also include some healthy fats. But the reason why I bring this up is we understand when we're exercising, which will be part of this series also, and talking about how and why we exercise. But in order to have that energy and the energy throughout the day, it's essential to have some carbs. And a lot of people are just cutting them out and they're not really understanding why. We want to convert that also to fuel for the brain, fuel for the body, and fuel for the brain. We do know, however, that when we're just having the carbs, there can be some issues with it. And you have to find the things that work for you. So, for example, I have clients that are really struggling with gluten and or grains. So if that's not working for you, there's so many wonderful things out there between potatoes and sweet potatoes and rice and wild rice. And there's different ways to look at that and how you eat them. So one of the things that I found for me personally, and again, this is something you can take with a grain of salt. I'm not telling you to do this, but I want you to listen to your body and see how your body is feeling. In my late 40s and early 50s, I was always feeling bloated. A lot of my clients complain about that. That's part of menopause, but it's also part of how we eat. And when I ate in a certain order through information and education that I learned, but also understanding blood sugar better and also understanding my own body, because again, it's all about you and your body. I found when I ate my fiber first, because it does digest faster than the protein, I eat the fiber first, then I eat my protein, and that creates a nice stable environment so that when I eat the carb last, my blood sugar doesn't spike. And I am that girl that does use a glucometer once in a while, and I check out food and find out what my blood sugar is doing. That is another thing that I'm finding is as I get older, knowing that I am more likely to become insulin resistant as I get older, I have to pay attention to blood sugar more. And it's much more fun to eat thinking about blood sugar than losing weight. I'm stabilizing my blood sugar, my mood, my body, everything that makes me feel good, as opposed to everything like dieting that makes me feel icky. So that's a term that I would use with my kids, by the way, icky. So learning to nourish my body through intuitive eating also. Let's talk about intermittent fasting. What you do with your body, if it works, is great. I'm not telling you to not intermittent fast, but if you're finding that you're not doing well with it and you're not feeling great, and maybe your thyroid is having issues, then I'd love for you to really listen to your body. I have clients that say, oh, I wanted to make it till 10 or 11 o'clock without eating, but I was so hungry. And then they feel guilty for eating. But what's really great is it means your body's hunger cues are on point and they're telling you this is the time. This is the time to eat. So go ahead and eat. But what you start with is really important. Starting with a really good savory meal and not starting with the toast, the pastry, the bagel, the sugar. Stabilize that blood sugar first thing in the morning. And if you enjoy intermittent fasting and it works for you and it doesn't make you binge later, then that is what your body is telling you is good. So please take the time to connect. And that's what we're talking about with dieting, restriction, and nourishing your body. When we get to our 50s and our bodies have gone through so much, we've disconnected from our bodies and we don't trust our bodies. So if you're not trusting your body right now, maybe slow down, really pay attention, keep a journal, and start looking at what foods feel really good. And the interesting thing is, foods that I thought were great for me over the years, I'm finding are not great for me right now. And there's so many alternatives. We don't have to eat things that make us feel bad. And the interesting thing is, I ate oatmeal when I was younger and was fine. But when I tested my blood sugar with it, it was not good. And I wanted to be that heart healthy person having my oatmeal in the morning. And I wanted to jump on the overnight oats bandwagon, but I couldn't do that anymore because it really was spiking my blood sugar and had to go back to a protein, fiber, and carb breakfast. Now, with the carb, that's optional. I don't have it all the time, but I don't shy away from it if I want it. It just depends on what's available in my house. And cooking at home is really important. I know that in this day and age, it's really challenging because we are able to click on our phones. We don't even have to talk to anyone. We literally can put in an online order. People show up at our house with food. But I want to warn you about that food, even if it seems healthy. Let's say you order even salmon, broccoli, and a little rice. So when you are cooking at home, you are more likely to use fresh ingredients. You're more likely to use something like olive oil in your own seasonings. When you are ordering out, please remember that there are oils that you don't know what they are. And I won't get into this debate that some people do about, whether or not you should have canola and soybean oil, if that's bad for you. That's not what I'm talking about. The fact that you don't know what's in it. You don't know what seasonings are in it. You don't know what chemicals, preservatives, if there's MSG. So just pay attention to that. Intuitive eating means we can do that, have fun, and have food out once in a while. But if you're doing it just because you want the convenience, just double check and see if there are places in your area that have meal delivery that you might know more about the ingredients and not just coming from a restaurant. And I'd also love for you to cook at home, obviously, because the experience, you get to smell it. And while you're cooking it, your body gets ready to eat it. It's an experience rather than just the food showing up. You're connecting with your food before you even eat it. So the first one, again, stopped dieting and I stopped worrying about tracking everything. And the second thing is I'm learning to nourish my body in different ways where I'm actually listening to myself. But I want to share what the importance of nourishing your body is and those points that I made about the different foods. This is not just for my body. And this will come up again in the exercise. It's not just so that I can exercise. It's not just to build muscle, but my brain health in my 50s is at stake. And I want to make sure that I'm feeding my brain as well as I'm feeding my body. And it's not just about memory. We think everything is about memory, but it's also about mental health. When I feel my body better, and I also listen to it, and I also allow myself to have that chocolate once in a while or that treat, when I really listen and I treat my body well, then I also feel less of the worrisome thoughts and the anxiety and the edginess around that. Because, of course, when we're not eating well, some of that food does affect how we feel. It can affect those anxious thoughts. It can affect your entire body, not just your gut, not just your weight, but also your mental health. And also when you're restricting, you're affecting your mental health. You're telling yourself that you cannot have something, and then you're also creating shame and guilt around the things that you do have. So that's why that nourishment is really important. Number 3, and I'm going to say a disclaimer, I have no judgment and all love for anyone who did not make this decision. So please understand that when I say that number 3, made such a big impact on me, but everyone is on their own journey. But I wanted to share about quitting alcohol. I gave up alcohol and I had been drinking from age 18, maybe earlier, but the drinking age was 18 all the way up until age 55. I'm going to be 57 this month. So I decided to take a break from alcohol, and I decided to take a break in a different way. So over a year and a half ago, I just was going to take a break. I didn't give myself, this is like dieting. I didn't give myself this, you're going to quit drinking and you're never going to have a drink again. I didn't say never. And some people do give it up that way because they have to, or because they just know they're done with it. And I honor that. I think that's amazing. But I didn't go into it like that. I just want to be honest about it. I didn't go in thinking I was going to give it up forever. And I was doing a different experiment this time with giving up alcohol that didn't have to do with the physical as much. I already knew the physical effects. I already knew that I didn't feel well the next day. My face was inflamed. Underneath my eyes was always a little puffy if I had a couple glasses of wine. I also knew that my body may or may not be hanging on to weight because of it. I knew that my inhibitions were down and I was eating more. When I drank that alcohol before dinner, I would definitely go back for seconds because my hunger cues were completely turned off. But what I was experimenting with this time was the mental health aspect of giving up alcohol. Because I will tell you that I would say when I woke up in the morning, I'm not going to drink again. Why did I have that glass of wine or 2 glasses of wine last night? I do not understand why I can't just say I'm not going to do it. So I would get up in the morning and I would say that I'm not drinking again this week. And then 5 o'clock would roll around and my stress level coming home from work and starting to cook dinner, if there was a glass of wine or a bottle of wine available, I would open up that bottle of wine and have a glass while I was cooking. So the mental health part of this is we knew, I talked to my husband, Mike, about this a lot. We knew that that was part of the allure, is it was a come down process during the day. It gave me an opportunity to bring myself down a notch from the day, de-stress. But that was a crutch that I was using because I didn't have a good transition from my car into the home. And that was the transition that I used to shift gears. And the times that I worked at home, that was another thing. I didn't have a break. I was at home working, and then I was at home cooking dinner and being a wife and mom. So that work transition is something that I really figured out. So when I chose to give up alcohol, I also wanted to see how I felt with the morning anxiety hangover. So I didn't have hangovers because I didn't drink that much, but my body was affected. But I did have anxiety. So I hear that called anxiety. And I had the anxiety of disappointing myself because of drinking, but also just because it did affect the chemicals in my brain when I drank alcohol. And if you're going through menopause, you know what sleep is like. We're waking up at 2 and 3, having a really hard time going back to sleep, and alcohol already was doing that. As much as it helps you fall asleep right away, alcohol can agitate that sleep later in the evening. So when I gave up alcohol and I really realized mentally how much better I felt great because I was checking the box that said I didn't drink alcohol, but I was also waking up very clear. I felt like working out. I didn't necessarily need coffee right away. I just enjoy coffee a lot in the morning. I didn't feel any shame and guilt over breaking the promises to myself, but physically, the inflammation was coming down. Physically, I was getting my hunger cues back. Physically, I was getting my satiety cues back, knowing when I was full. I also felt like I had a whole nother transition to go through besides my personal transition. And that was going out and having a social time with people. and understanding that it was okay. I'm in my 50s. I have a right to say, no, thank you. I don't want any alcohol. I did feel peer pressure, by the way. People who would at parties or out say, are you sure you don't want to drink? And it was just because they weren't used to me drinking. And that's a personal thing that I learned, part of being older, part of being wiser, part of learning that I'm okay being me. And we will get to this in some of the other parts of this series, but being okay with me and my decisions and not worrying about what other people were saying. So giving up alcohol was a very big transition that helped me feel better mentally and physically. Because when people give up alcohol, a lot of times they'll do it just to lose weight, but it improved so many areas of my life that I can imagine going back. And that's what happened and why I didn't end up just taking a break, that I know for a fact that I'm done for good. So that was number 3. Number 4 is I am learning, because when we were younger, we didn't have social media. We have a lot of social media now, and having a business and coaching, I'm on social media a lot, but I am limiting my scroll time these days. And the reason why I'm limiting my scroll time is for 3 different things that I feel are going on. One, I'm obviously comparing myself to other people. And when I compare myself to other people, I don't want to look at my body, my aging process compared to other people. I want to just focus on what I know is making me feel better, which is why I'm sharing this with you, because I want you to focus on what's making you feel better, not necessarily what anyone else is doing. I'm sharing these tips with you, but you are still you, and you can make an individual plan. This is just to give you ideas for that. But the scrolling was causing me to look at other people my age. And we know that, yes, there are filters. We know that there are things that we can all do. And there's no judgment, because I think it's great that we have the opportunity, if women want to dye their hair, if women want to take on other interventions, whether it's Botox or fillers, that's a totally personal choice. It's how you feel inside about yourself, and if you can accept yourself in any way. So that is a personal choice. I think that's great if people choose to do that. I do some of those things, but I feel like when I chose to look at other people in love, not compare, and say, that woman's beautiful, that woman looks great, that woman's doing great things, but also know that what we post on social media is really the best of what we want people to see. We're seeing a little bit more authenticity, but we're still not sure when people post things how fully real it is, because we all censor a little bit. We all censor a little bit, even when we're talking to people, even when we are with other people in person. So on social media, sometimes we censor a little bit too, and that's okay. Just seeing it for what it is. The other thing that I found very challenging with scrolling is it took my brain away, and it was an escape. So like the glass of wine, the sugar, scrolling on social media is just another escape. And if you can put it in perspective and say, okay, I'm going to give myself 15, 20 minutes to just vegetate. And it's like watching Netflix. I'm going to just sit on social media, but I'm going to stop. The problem is we don't always know when to stop, and our brain starts getting engaged with some of these things and making us think certain things, and maybe even less about ourselves. So that's where we have to be careful. But I also found that it was a time, I call this a time suck. It's sucking away and wasting time, that I could be out walking. I could be lifting weights. I could be calling, one of my kids on the phone. I was spending a little bit too much time on there outside of my work and letting it seep into me. The other thing that happens when you're on social media is everybody's an expert, even me. So everyone's an expert. And so we believe every single thing that we see on there. And my clients, I love them. I keep in touch with my clients. We text message back and forth in between. And I'll have text messages coming in from these wonderful women that will say, what do you think of this? And they saw it on TikTok or Instagram. And sometimes I think it's a great idea. I think it's something wonderful. There's some really wonderful educational things out there. And there's some people that have such good information to share. But then other times I'll say, well, why are you looking at this? Is this going to fix something for you that maybe you can do on your own? Is this product going to really help you? Or is it just another thing that you're trying to solve a problem that you can solve on your own? So just pay attention to the digital world. And I'm going to share one more thing that I changed that was really pivotal, because we all came out of a time where we were watching the news a lot. There were a lot of things going on in our world where we felt tied into the news because we thought that's where we were getting our best information. I stopped watching the news in the morning and the evening. It was mostly a morning thing. But when you start your day with negativity, fear mongering, possible bias, I don't know. I'm not placing a judgment on that. But when you start with some of that in your day, it can really shape your day. So when I stopped listening to other people first thing in the morning, instead of taking my walk outside, doing my devotions, doing the inner work, and then doing a workout and doing the outer work with just me, listening to things that I was interested in, because I am a podcast, I am addicted to them, podcast addict. And when we start to shape our own day and create the calm and calm the nervous system first thing in the morning, we can have a much better day. Because I'll tell you, when I watch the news, and many of my clients have stopped watching the news for the same reason, the nervous system is kind of going crazy, and we're thinking ahead, and we're already in a negative space. The reason why I stopped watching it in the evening was the same thing. Your morning and your evening are bookends to your day. How you start your day and how you end your day is really important. And we need to go to sleep. And coming down in time to be able to go to sleep without all those thoughts in your mind is really important. And we'll talk about sleep also. So that was number 4. And I think that when I took the time to use social media for the right reasons, and also in a time frame that I could cut off and have a timer on, it really improved my self-worth. It really improved my self-esteem. And I was also to step back and look at it as, hey, I get to pick out the things that I want that are educational for me. Okay, the last one today is taking charge of my health meant that I needed to be proactive. So number 5 is being proactive about your health and getting the testing done and getting the checkups and going to the doctors. I feel like I still want you to listen to yourself and be an advocate for yourself, though. So when you get all these things done, still make sure that you're speaking up for yourself. And that's one of the things I work on with my clients, is coming up with questions, going to the doctors, and kind of being armed with some questions to make sure that you keep going in the right direction to feel better. So if you're not doing everything holistically, like with me as a holistic nutritionist and health coach, and you're also using a doctor as part of your team, which is really important. Doctors, therapists, anyone who's on your team is very important, but making sure that you get what you need out of that. But I will tell you that when I got my regular blood work done, I wasn't getting everything that I needed. So I was finding out my cholesterol, my glucose, and my triglycerides, and my vitamin D and things like that. They're all very, very important. But when I started to have thyroid issues, I had to press a little bit to get the full panel. And again, that's talking about advocacy and asking for everything. Some of my clients didn't even know until they came to see me that there was more to it on the thyroid than just the TSH number. So it's important to reach out, ask questions. The other thing I didn't realize as I was going into menopause is I really needed to understand where my estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, where those were falling, so that I could understand what was happening with my body, because all 3 of them had fallen, but specifically progesterone and estrogen. And with those falling, I could now understand why I was having the symptoms that I was having going through menopause. So again, I advocate. Doesn't mean you have to go on hormone replacement therapy, but what it means is you understand and know where your body stands. So I advocate for my clients to go in and ask for these to be done so that you can at least understand where your body is coming from, because it's trying to speak to you. It's trying to tell you things. It's doing what it's supposed to do as we age and as we get older. But if you don't know what's going on, it's frustrating and you feel like all these other things are going on. I also have clients who did not realize they were in an autoimmune state. And until they got tested and asked the questions, they did not know. So they didn't understand the things that they could have been doing to be taking care of their bodies in that state. I also felt like I was falling off because of my symptoms. I wasn't feeling as motivated. I wasn't wanting to keep up with my appointments. And there are two other things that I think are really important. However you want to check breast health, there's a couple different ways to do this now, but getting your mammogram or getting the scan, whatever works for you, because I know there are some people out there that are debating what's the best way to do that. But breast health is very important, and making sure that you're keeping an eye on that for breast cancer. I'm going to tie this back in just for a second to the alcohol. One of the other reasons I gave up alcohol is the research is just coming out more and more about the different cancers that are linked to alcohol use. And there's some people that I respect very much that are sharing that no amount of alcohol is safe for our bodies. So keeping up with all these doctor's appointments and getting everything checked out, I felt like if I was doing the best that I could do to be in tune and check in with my body, that would be a good step for me. Another thing that's really important, believe it or not, is your dental visits. Our dental situation is often linked to heart disease. So it's important for us to keep up with those appointments too. And it always feels good to walk out of there and know things are okay. So when you get your blood work done, when you go to the dentist, when you get your mammogram, it also takes off the mental fatigue that you might be feeling knowing that you should be getting these appointments done. So when you're keeping up with them, and eye health, making sure you're getting to the eye doctor, some people feel like they can see just fine. And then they go and they realize, oh, I could really use a little bit of help, because as we age, things change. Ironically, I've been extremely nearsighted for my entire life, and I have a very strong prescription. And ironically, my prescription actually got a little bit better. So I got a little bit lucky, and I was able to get contacts that are set up in a way that I can read without, I call them cheaters, but it's okay to use those if you need them, because you know that those are the things that are changing. But there are other things that can happen with our eye health that you want to keep an eye on. So keeping up with your regular appointments. So why is that affecting me in my 50s? It's not just a physical thing that I can take care of if I need to. Mentally, I feel so much better when I know I've checked that box, because then I can go a while without having to stress or worry that something's going on with me. Another one is the dermatologist. I live in Florida, so it's even more important because I'm in the sun, I'm outside walking and running, and I really do have to get my skin checked at least every 6 months. But that's another way to make yourself feel better, to know that things are going well, just have somebody do a check on you. The other thing I want to share about blood work is, if you get blood work back, some people don't want to go to the doctor. They don't want to get their blood work done because they know it's not good. And this is a backwards feeling when they say, this is a backwards action when they say, well, I'm going to work on it. I'm going to eat clean, and then I'm going to go get my blood work done. That's actually backwards. Go ahead and get the blood work done and use that as your basis to nourish your body better, to do the things that you need to do, to exercise, whatever it happens to be, because that's your baseline. That is a number. That is facts. It's not about losing weight and being skinny. It's facts about your health. So the 5 things that I shared with you are: 1, stopping the restricting dieting and tracking, nourishing your body in a more intuitive way and listening to your body and finding the foods that work for you, and quitting alcohol, limiting social media and my news consumption. And number 5 was really taking charge of my health by being proactive and getting all the testing and appointments done. And in part 2, we're going to give you 5 more things that you can think about that will help improve your mental and physical health in your 50s. What I find really fascinating about these different items is you can take baby steps in each one. You can take your time doing them, and you don't have to fix everything today. This is not about perfectionism. My clients know that progress, moving forward, baby steps is really important because, one, physically, you're actually making steps to improve your health, but mentally, you can also check those boxes that you're doing the good things for yourself. And what I always do is close my podcast with 3 actionable tips to nourish your entire life. So the first one is, I'm going to challenge you to make that one appointment that you've been putting off. Make that one appointment. Doctor, dentist, dermatologist, make that one appointment and commit to sticking to it. You can go from there after that one appointment. Number 2, evaluating whether you are restricting and not eating enough food in the day. And if you are, to really stop and listen and evaluate and journal on why you're not allowing yourself to eat. And if you need help with that, make sure you get in touch with me. And number 3, I would like for you to tune out the rest of the world and listen to your body on what you feel like you know in your heart would help propel you and improve your physical or mental health, or both. You are an individual, and a lot of times deep in our hearts, we know what we need to start with. When a client comes to me, I'll say, where do you think we should start? I always have an idea in my head because that's what I do, but I always ask, where do you think we should start? And most of the time, they say the same things. So whether it's adding a vegetable to each meal, whether it's drinking water, whether it's moving more, you know where you need to start, but think about you and tune out the rest of the world. So part 2 is coming next week. Stay tuned, and please make sure to tag me on social media and let me know what is helping you move forward. And also, please make sure you give us a 5-star rating and review, and subscribe or follow. Nourish your entire life, and please make sure you give yourself some grace today. I really appreciate you being here. If you resonated with this podcast, it would mean a lot to me if you'd be willing to follow or subscribe to the Emotional Eats podcast. Then you'll never miss an episode. Just go to the Emotional Eats show page on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and tap the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner and click on it. While you're there, if you'd be willing to give me a 5-star rating and review, I would be so grateful. If you'd like to take a screenshot and share it on Instagram, just tag me at Kim Hines Health. I would love to hear your thoughts and let me know how I can support you. You can always DM me on Instagram, again, at Kim Hines Health. And just remember to nourish your life and give yourself grace today.